specific parts of the brain were associated with particular limbs and organs in the body. This enabled him to create maps of the brain, particularly the areas dealing with sensory and motor functions, which are still used today. An interesting aspect of this work has to do with the temporal lobes, which lie at the side of the brain. Penfield found that when this area was stimulated, patients could experience vivid memories or other experiences somatosensory